And now this. NBC reporting federal investigators wiretapped the phone of President Trump's former personal attorney, Michael Cohen. And at least one of his calls with the White House was intercepted. According to the report, the wiretap was in place leading up to the raids on Cohen's home and offices last month. And it's unknown if President Trump was heard on the wiretaps. This according to two anonymous sources. Giuliani now telling the Daily Beast he doesn't think Michael Cohen was wiretapped because it would be highly illegal. With me now is attorney Harmeet Dhillon. Harmeet, this appears to me to be one of the biggest messes I've seen in recent political history. You've got Mr. Cohen here, who says that he was not paid back, stands by that. Now you have Mayor Giuliani come out last night and say he was. You have President Trump saying that he did not pay him. Mayor Giuliani comes out and says that he did, but President Trump didn't know about it, didn't know about what it was for. You also have Mayor Giuliani coming out saying that this wiretap was illegal because of the attorney-client privilege, and also if you're wiretapping and a president is on the call, you have to notify the White House. Was this illegal if this wiretap did in fact exist?
Well, I think it's too early to say whether or not it was illegal, at least for me. I don't know all the details, but what we do have is this coming in the setting of evidence that the same people involved in these DOJ investigations have sought warrants to wiretap people through the FISA court that were not truthful with the court about all the circumstances. And it's really the same sort of group of high-level FBI and DOJ individuals who have been involved in getting this particular set of search warrants, and we've already known, for example, that Michael Cohen's emails have been intercepted, and so it's not surprising that there is a wiretap order as well. The real question is, what was the court told in order to get the subpoena, in order to get that wiretapping, in order to get that warrant, rather? And we don't know that. But it is true that courts generally require the prosecutors to take great care and not to intercept attorney-client communications unless there is already evidence of an attorney-client exception relating to a crime, and that has not been alleged yet in this case. So if it is true that the president's or somebody close to the president's on his behalf communications with his lawyer have been intercepted, that is a very serious matter.
NBC News, it's breaking news, has just released a report that they, in fact, did not listen to the calls. I'm not sure if they said whether the wiretap was still in existence or not, but NBC at least saying they did not listen to those calls. That's the newest report. And it's just a new web that's being built right now. This whole thing is just crazy to me. Now, it seems to me with plausible deniability that the Trump administration, whether it was true or not, has to at least say that they paid back Mr. Cohen, because if not, that looks like a campaign finance violation, which is a violation of the federal law. Is that correct?
Well, I think Rudy Giuliani already has addressed this issue, and some people have said, oh, maybe he went on Hannity's show last night and had a slip of the tongue. No, I think Rudy Giuliani knows exactly what he is doing, and that was thought out carefully. Obviously, when you are making a payment like this to settle a disputed claim, which I do as a lawyer on behalf of my clients all the time, you don't want to be talking about it publicly, and so that's one point. And so now they have to do it because of all the storm of controversy around it. But number two, it's entirely plausible that somebody of the net worth of the president would not know the details of settlements like this, and I'm sure it isn't necessarily the only settlement. He's been affiliated with Michael Cohen for many years. And so, it's a rounding error for somebody who's very wealthy, this amount of money. I know it may seem like a lot to most Americans, but in the grand scheme of things, people who are this wealthy routinely are shaken down, routinely are approached with these types of threats, and routinely make the calculation that regardless of the merits of these types of claims, it is better economically and better for their peace of mind and their family's sake to resolve them privately. So we know that Stormy Daniels is not a person who can be trusted because she breached that agreement. So that has to be put into the context of the veracity of all of this.
Yeah,
as well.
But who can be trusted between Michael Cohen and Rudy Giuliani? Because one of them is lying. Look, I can understand the argument that President Trump, if he did in fact spend $100 million on his campaign, didn't know about a $130,000 payment. But if you're the lawyer and you said that you made, and I have no reason to doubt that, payments on behalf of your client, if you're making a payment of $130,000 on behalf of your client, it may not mean something to a person with $100 million who does this regularly when people try to sue him for crazy things, much less some more egregious things like this. But if it's a porn star that involves the President of the United States, you know for a fact whether you did this or not. And Michael Cohen has denied it. So somebody's lying here. It's either Michael Cohen or Rudy Giuliani. I mean, if you're the lawyer here, wouldn't you know you made this payment?
No, so first of all, I would reject the characterization that somebody must be lying. I would probably, if I were taking depositions, I would ask quite a few follow-up questions. And so the way that Rudy Giuliani described this was that there were payments made in the form of retainers of some amount of money every month. I think he said $35,000. So that's different than a check for $130,000 being written to Michael Cohen to reimburse him, but that isn't inconsistent with reimbursement having been made. So
I'm talking about Michael. Wait a minute.
I
don't mean to interrupt you. I apologize. I'm talking about Michael Cohen's payment to Stormy Daniels. That was the one that Michael Cohen says he was not reimbursed for. Wouldn't Michael Cohen know this? Now, the president may not, because he's a very wealthy man, and there's a lot of these things that go on with very wealthy people. But wouldn't Michael Cohen know for sure? Because Michael Cohen says he was not reimbursed. Mayor Giuliani said he was. There's a problem there.
Well, I just addressed that. So I think that there's a difference between getting a $130,000 check that is a direct exact amount, and retainer payments, which is how Giuliani described it. So, again, you are dealing with lawyers here, and I'm sure the language was thought about very carefully before each of these two gentlemen got into the details. And, it is always awkward when you're a lawyer being asked to describe the details of your interactions with your client. Lawyers try to be very circumspect about that. And so, I mean, any lawyer would be put in a very difficult position to answer those questions. So without some further follow-up, I don't think anyone can conclude that there was a lie told here by either of them.
I understand. But again, I wasn't talking about the retainer to Michael Cohen. There was not a retainer paid to a porn star. I can pretty much guarantee you that. I do want to follow up a little bit on the NBC story. The NBC story was that now they're walking back claims that they indeed listened to these phone calls. But you go forward now. You have Special Counsel Robert Mueller filing a request for 70 subpoenas in the Eastern District of Virginia in the case of former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort. Where does this go from here? This seems like the never-ending investigation. And one of the reasons it seems never-ending is because Mr. Mueller is just not letting any out, like a good investigator would do. But we don't know if it's an actual witch hunt or if there's something here. What do you think this means, these 70 subpoenas?
Well, first with the 70 subpoenas, we don't know what it means because the story just broke a few minutes ago. I've seen the cover page of the request by the special prosecutor, but generally speaking, you have to get a court to issue a subpoena for a trial appearance, and the date indicated is that the prosecutor wants individuals to come to court in a date in July to testify at the trial. It also says there's a reference in the news reports about 35 sets of subpoenas, so it could be that there's a request for two separate hearing dates. It's not clear from the papers that have been published so far. And with respect to so-called they are walking back the wiretapping claims, who are they? We don't know who they are. We don't know where these leaks are coming from. And we don't know whether people are saying that they didn't do what they weren't supposed to do because they've been caught out in doing it. But, I would need a lot more information, and so should your viewers, before you reach any conclusions about whether the calls were simply monitored as to a call occurred versus the contents of the call being listened to and who was on the other side of that call at the White House. I think these are all questions we don't know as yet.
That's right, and that's the problem with this entire mess. There's so many reports, there's so many allegations. You don't know what is fact, especially because Mr. Mueller himself is not letting any information out until he wants to. Harmeet, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you coming on tonight. Coming up.
My pleasure.